to another episode of Winning the Moment. Today is episode 19, and for those of you that don't know him, get excited to meet him. His name is Macrae Heppler. He is a local real estate tycoon in Southern Utah. He is a managing partner of Eaglegate Title, and I like to call him the unofficial mayor of Southern Utah. So stay tuned, enjoy the episode, and be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you. So really exciting for all of the people listening. If you're not from St. George, you may not know who he is, but if you're from St. George... and you know exactly who's in the chair. It's the unofficial mayor of St. George, Macrae Heppler. It's amazing. So I live in Desert Color. And did that video come out today? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he does videos all the time updating people in St. George, because if he didn't do it, no one would know. And he had a video about Desert Color, and I was like, oh, I got to make sure to watch this one, because he's going to know everything about the neighborhood I live in that I don't know. And so it was exciting to see. But it's Macrae Heppler. What's your title at Eaglegate?
Managing partner.
Managing partner.
I just kind of a utility guy, but my main role is relationship making and getting business in the door and making sure those clients are happy. Yeah. But I also do a lot of the financial stuff and business management.
Do you have to be licensed for any of that, like you individually?
Yeah, for the escrow and marketing, there's licenses for escrow officer, title examiner, and marketing. I have marketing and escrow.
Okay.
So if I need to do closings, I can, but we've got a team built that's way better than me at doing that. And then I just stay in my lane.
Get in your lane. So Macrae and I went to high school together, and so there's some good laughs about that. He's very polished, as you can see today, because it's on camera if you're watching. If we were filming this podcast in high school, he'd have a sideways hat and a tall tee and some baggy shorts.
Not sideways hat, but yes, I did go through a phase of bagginess.
Isn't it amazing to think we used to play basketball in those?
I don't know how.
Like, how did we do it, you know?
No clue.
We were at a Utah Tech game with Breck, and this one dude, his shorts were shorter than like his underwear,
yeah,
you know, or like
that.
whatever, like the compression like underwear was he was wearing. But so Macrae and I have crossed paths a bunch of times, and we're in a fantasy football league together, both huge sports fans. And so much of winning the moment comes from sports and something that we're super passionate about. And it's been fun getting in the local community with Macrae. He kind of got me started to really support Utah Tech University, which has been such a blessing. And you probably don't know, but I'm on the advisory board now for Utah Tech.
I saw that. I was actually going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so I love it, and it probably wouldn't have happened had we not started, like, had you not said, let's do these tickets, and then we did basketball together. But
I'm on the foundation board, so it's kind of the same idea of helping grow the university, just in different outlets. So
I'll tell you, I had lunch today with Garrett Rose. You know Garrett?
Yeah, love Garrett.
So I had lunch with him because he was giving me some updates. I'd missed some meetings. And so he's kind of updating me, and I had this idea that I wanted to share with him, because so much of college sports is about NIL now, right? So name, likeness, and image, or NLI, I guess. And so, because now college players can get paid. They've always been paid in the whole history of time. It's just now it's legal, right? Yeah. And so we have this huge problem with the transfer portal, because everyone everywhere just transfers now. It's always, the grass was always greener. So we had, I can't remember Joey's last name, but what was Joey's last name?
Yeah, Joey. I can't remember either, but
he was a receiver at Utah Tech, and he made the game so fun. He was absolutely incredible, and I knew we're going to lose him, you know, which is really unfortunate. And it's not just us; it's all the colleges. And I learned a lot about being on the advisory board, why that is, because like we can't compete, and like if we would have won the tournament we couldn't have gone to the big dance, right? So there's all these restrictions that we have, and they also held back a bunch of money. It's just a part of the process. And so I kind of learned about all of that, and I was thinking, okay, so how can we compete in this small market? And we're never going to get like big name, image, likeness players. Like that's not going to happen here. But I thought, well, what if we create a portal? So you're an athlete, Macrae Heppler. And so let's say you play basketball, we create a portal, and there's you, and then all the services that you'll do for your NIL. So it's like Crumble Cookies could say, I'm going to hire Macrae for a day, and he's going to go deliver cookies. And with every cookie, he's going to give away Utah Tech tickets. And for that, he gets $800, right? Because so many people may not be able to donate $10,000 or $20,000 to the university, but they can give $400 to a kid to come in his Utah Tech jersey to their business for the day, or to do some social media posts, or to do anything creative, right? And so then all these players have a portal. So you just have like a QR code. So someone's like, oh, Macrae, how can I support you? It's like, oh, here, go pick one of the things that I have. And of course, everyone's prices will be different. The offerings they'll have will be different. And we can use technology, so they could have like a calendar. So the players would say, here's the times I'm available, and they could book them without even having to check with the players. And then now if they can string a couple of those together, it's like maybe when it comes transfer portal time, it's like, well, you know what? I'm making $4,000 a month on my small NIL deals, you know, and they become a fabric of the community.
Right.
Because instead of just being like a kid from California that's here for sports, it's
they're
like
ingrained.
They're ingrained in the community, right?
No, that's a great idea.
So it'll be pretty cool. But that's enough about that. I'd love to let the audience hear your backstory. And really, your story is amazing. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. That's one of the names. I wrote down a bunch of names of people I wanted to put a star next to yours.
I appreciate that.
Because I think, you know, just watching your story and seeing what you've accomplished and really what you've done, it's amazing how you got to where you are today. But what you've done in that role, like really cementing yourself in the community, is truly admirable because it's not an easy thing to do. And I don't know that I've ever seen anyone do it as well as you have. And so I want to talk about that, but let's start about how you got there first. Like, what's your backstory? How did you get to where you are today?
So firstly, I actually have two really good examples as parents that have really taught me just how to live my life in general. Those are the two biggest mentors in my life, and I've learned so much from them. And one of my dad, I mean, he always gives me crap because he still says this is his island. And it's a little inside joke between him and I, but most people in this town, he has so many former students, anywhere from Dixie Middle School, Dixie High School, to
and he was a
Middle
coach.
School. He was a coach, 35 years in the district. And so growing up and even throughout the last couple of years of business, a lot of people that I meet, they're like, oh yeah, is your dad Coach Heppler?
Yeah.
And so it's funny because I am becoming more connected, obviously.
Yeah.
And so every once in a while he's like, just remember, this is still my island. And then my mom, who's not into this is why our partnership and the way we operate is really, really cool. And it works so magically because everything that I like to do, that I do great at, is not her cup of tea. And same with what she does, and is not what I want to do.
That's what the best partnerships are, right?
And so although she's not a huge connector, she cares so much about the people that she works for, our clients, the real estate agents, the lenders, the builders, the developers. Those are the people, those are our referral partners that are also our clients. And then all the clients that they're bringing us, right? The buyers and sellers. And so I've just genuinely, those two have shaped how I treat people and how I treat relationships from the time that I was born, right? And so that's why this business has been it's just been like the perfect type of business for me to be in.
Yeah.
Because it is all about relationships. It's all about who you're friends with, not only in business and in where your business is coming from, but just being a member of the business community. If you're not a collaborative business community, it can be disconnected. And I like being that connector of connecting different people and helping people, right? Like that's a large part of where I see success.
Where did that start for you? Because obviously you had a sales background, right? And so were you always like, oh, I want to be the connector and I want to bring people together, or how did that happen?
So it's funny. I can't remember where I was talking about this, but actually Brad Harker got it out of me in one of my coaching sessions with him.
And for the people listening, Brad Harker's a local like sales coach, business coach. Yeah. Yeah,
he's incredible. And because the connecting really was born out of a necessity in just being the nature of our business, right? So in my business, I am a local business. I'm 100% based on referrals, word of mouth. We don't do.
You guys can't even really market, or there's a lot of restrictions.
A lot of restrictions on how we can market. We can't pay to play. You know, there's a lot of. It's just really who you're friends with and how well you execute. If you're executing well, and that's why we built out this team to just make it so seamless, because really that's how we keep people happy.
And let's say really quick too for the audience, because they just probably don't know, it's Eagle Gate Title, so it's title services.
Yes, title and escrow. So if you're buying or selling or refinancing in the state of Utah, you'll go to an office for closing. That is our office, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And so, but what I really realized was growing up, my group of friends, my age, there was about 16 of us.
What year did you graduate?
2008.
Okay.
that were all like best friends, and we all came together in like 7th grade from Bloomington and where we were at Coral Cliffs, and we became this really big friend group. Now, I was never, you always have friends in the friend group that are like kind of the leaders of the group, right? Or that are maybe like the best athletes, or the ones with
get all the girls,
or
has the nicest house,
or the cars, or whatever. And I was never that guy, but my friends have always told me throughout time, and even just within the last couple of years, that I've just been like the glue of our group. And essentially, like if I was part of whatever was happening, they knew that it was actually going to be something, because I was kind of bringing everybody together, right? And so in a way, I look at just the nature of who I've always been, as I really love my family. I love my friends. And it's an extension, the people that I get to work with and collaborate with in the business community. I feel like it's always just kind of been a part of me, and that's why I feel like this business has been perfect for me, because it's just allowed a lot of my strengths to just naturally flourish in business.
And you're going to be so much so much more successful, and you're going to be naturally you.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to be trying to do something that you're not gifted at, because it's just going to be a struggle the whole time.
Exactly.
And so the question is, when you started this business, and is it you and your mom that own it together?
Yeah.
So when you started it, were you consciously aware of the fact that you were the connector?
No. So I actually wasn't.
How did you perceive your role when you went to your mom and started it then?
So the way that it all went down was after I served a mission, came back.
Where'd you go on your mission?
I went to Mexico.
Okay.
Tampico,
Are you still
Tamaulipas.
fluent in Spanish?
I am.
What a great
was in
skill.
Cabo last week, and I was speaking Spanish to everybody and loved it.
Oh, God, that's the greatest.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I hate it. I can only really say like uno cerveza, por favor. Where did you go in Cabo?
So we stayed near San Jose.
Okay.
Closer to San Jose than San Lucas at the Le Blanc.
Okay.
All inclusive.
Yeah,
it was our first
awesome.
really like big all inclusive.
I love it.
It was awesome.
So that was like a baby moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're due in October, so
that's awesome.
10 more weeks. We'll have number 2,
and it's
another girl.
That's another girl.
So I'm
okay.
a girl dad.
Do you have the name?
Got a couple that we're thinking about, but nothing set.
Haven't
yet.
landed on it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So sorry. Go back to your story.
So
go on your mission.
So go on my mission, come back, and just like everybody else, for the most part, door-to-door sales, right?
Yeah. Why not?
And so, but when I first got home, I actually got home in April, and so that summer it was already I didn't want to just come home and then leave, and I didn't really have a good connection with somebody that was already out selling, and so that summer I enrolled into Dixie State. I was working at Jimmy John's delivering sandwiches during the day, and then I would go to Foot Locker just because I have a shoe obsession. So
yeah,
I love the MJ inspired winning the moment shoes.
Exactly. Michael, you're welcome.
And yeah. And so I would go there, and then I would do school in the morning, and that was just my way of getting off my feet back from the mission. And then I was at a football game, and one of the guys that I served on my mission with,
like a Dixie State football game? Or?
It was actually at Dixie State, but it was the state championship.
Oh, okay.
Delta was playing, and my buddy Curtis Peterson, who was a big part of my success at Vivint, he was at the game, and I just ran into him and was like, dude, what's up? And he's like, I sold for Vivint this summer. And I was actually against Vivint at the time. I was leaning pest control because everybody said that if you
that
sold
was like
alarms,
before pest control was like a big deal too, right?
Right. But pest control was considered the more easier sale, which it still is.
Yeah.
And it was you didn't have to be shady to do it. Was like the narrative.
Yeah.
And so
because people really need pest control.
Yeah, that was the narrative. And so I just thinking that I hadn't talked to anybody in alarms. I just got that narrative, right? So I'm talking to Curtis, and he's like, yeah, I just got back from selling for Vivint. And I said, you sold for Vivint? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, you're not shady at all. Like,
yeah,
you sold alarms and you did well? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So I ended up meeting with him and his manager, and those guys became a crucial part of my life. They're still my friends as well.
Yeah.
And anyway, got into Vivint, and I went on my first weekend trip down to California just to try it, see if I could do it. And I made more that weekend than I had in like the last 4 months of Jimmy John's and Foot Locker. So I was like, okay. So, and before my mission, I worked at All Connect and on phone sales, did some Dish Network stuff. And I really knew even after my mission, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do with my life.
I was just going to ask, did you have an idea of like, this is what I want to do?
No, although the only thing I knew that I wanted to be able to control my own destiny. So sales was a thing. It wasn't necessarily when I started with Vivint, it wasn't like, I want to start a business, right? Like I didn't know what I was going to start. I just knew that I wanted to be in sales because I could control my income. I could control I'm all about freedom. I want to be free. And so, anyway, so I start with Vivint. I do really well my first summer, and that's where I started my first LLC, really got into the book reading. I dropped school, for momentarily, and really just got into the entrepreneurship mode. Yeah. And that's where I really created the desire.
And no one in your family was an entrepreneur, right? Because your mom just worked for a title company, and then your dad was a teacher.
Correct. Yep. And so I was just and they still are like, where did you come from? Because you're just like the crazy entrepreneur of the family. Yeah. My brother's got some of it in him too, but my parents really were just the most simple, amazing people ever. Yeah. But I've had that in me since I can remember. Yeah. And so just really the competitive part of me, really, which we can talk about that as well.
Why we say like sales is the arena for adults to compete.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you stop being able to like play competitive sports, it's like sales is a competition every single day.
Exactly.
And so it allows you to like feed that like instinctual need to be the best, you know?
And really that started, if I can go back to All Connect, we started at All Connect, me and Elijah, when we were 18. It was his 18th birthday. We started at All Connect. This was before everybody worked at All Connect. Yeah. It was us as 18-year-olds and then a bunch of like older people.
Like moms and dads.
Yes. And so we started in Bridge Bay, and we had people come in and we were like, man, these guys they can sell a bunch. This is crazy. And during Bridge Bay, it's really hard.
What's Bridge Bay?
It's like the teaching, basically a training for like 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. And as soon as we got out on the floor, we just like hit the ground running, and it was kind of a competition between him and I. But then we started competing on like a very high level to the point where they started listening to our calls to see what we were doing, but not thinking that we were doing good. They were trying to. They thought like, we were.
These fools are lying.
These 18-year-old kids. Like there's not anyone near these 18-year-old kids. What are they doing? Yeah. And it ended funny, but the reality was when we drive to work in the morning, it was like we had our music bumping. Yeah. And it was like, we are going to compete right now.
Oh yeah, that's what sales is. That's why I loved it. You know?
And that's really where the desire in me, came. And then the door knocking on the mission led to the door-to-door sales, and a lot of my success is really founded upon those door knocking abilities and being able to just talk to anybody and to be able to sell a product. But then the grind going from that to what I do now, like there's not ever going to be a harder.
No. Yeah. Every job's easier than selling
door-to-door sales.
Yeah. And selling the religion's the hardest one. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you got 2 years of just like, and where it's regimented, you don't even have the option to be like, I'm going to take a week off. Right. You're doing the work. Yeah. It's amazing to see the benefit of that for every adult that I know that's done it. I don't think that I know a single friend who's a return missionary who doesn't go back to it. In fact, every person who's been on the podcast who's been on a mission, it's brought up every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great. I think it's a great foundation. There's a lot of good in that world. And I think that I would tell
we should just get rid of college and just send people on missions. It doesn't have to be even religious. Just for Seriously. 2 years, you have to go do this thing, work 6 days a week.
No kidding.
Give back, be charitable with your time, be like, all put together, follow a regimented schedule. I mean, that's way more valuable than school.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And so door to door, I knew year one that it wasn't going to be something that I would do forever. Year one, when I started doing my LLC and I really got into the business entrepreneur mindset, I was like, I want to live in St. George my whole life. And I know that I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm not going to be an attorney. I'm not going to be something specialized in school. I either have to be a business owner or get into sales, real estate, construction, something in that world. And so, but I didn't know what it was going to be, but I wanted to start a business. And after my second summer, a couple of my friends had a gym. One of the guys was leaving, so I bought him out. I was just going to be like a silent investor that pretty quickly turned into like a day job for me. And I actually had quit Vivint for a time, thinking we had some big plans for the gym. And
so there was a time where you thought the gym was going to be your main.
Yes, it didn't start that way, and it was never really. The thing was, it was never really my thing. It was my partner's thing, and so, but out of necessity and out of where we thought we could take it, I had quit Vivint, and even if it wasn't like my full-time thing forever, that was kind of the path that we went down. But then that ended pretty quickly. We had some investors lined up for a big building here, and then it just didn't work out. And I wasn't really making money from the gym at this, during this. I was still living on my Vivint income. And so then I went back out, but my thing with Vivint that year was that if I go out, I need to be able to come back once a week to check on the gym, make sure it's running smoothly, everything. And so it was on my first return back that I got home into St. George, and I went into my mom's office just to say hi to her. And I walk into attorneys shutting them down because her boss had lost, I'd been sued.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Lost the business. Yeah. So I walk into that, and she's a wreck. She's, boxing up her office. They were having to move downstairs, which is ironically where my current office is downstairs.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I just get a quick 5-minute, like, what's going on, that she tells me that they're being taken over by another title company from Salt Lake. And she just didn't really feel good about it. She's not one, she hates change. She does not like change very much. And she had kind of had her system and her thing for the last 17. She's been in the business since before I was alive, 1987.
Wow.
I was born in 90. She was with this company since 98, I believe. And so she just kind of told me the quick story, and literally the first thing out of my mouth was, why don't we just start our own? Because right in that moment, I was like, this was like winning the moment, right? Right in that moment, I said, what if we just start our own? I am looking for something that I can do long-term here, start a business. You've done this for 33 years. Everyone that I've ever talked to in real estate knows your name and knows you do a good job. You just don't have anybody marketing or doing anything to help grow it. And anyway, initially she was like, no. Like, let's not.
Yeah.
But then I was like, let me just look into it. Like, I just want to look into what it takes. Cause she's like, you can't just start your own title company. I'm like, well, everybody else has at some point. So let me just look into it.
Yeah. Everyone at some point who has one started one.
Yes. And so anyway, that's where we left off. And then I was determined from that point. I said, I'm going to do what it takes, because I feel like this opportunity, it could be really big.
Yeah.
Because she was already doing some business. And if there was just a way that I could grow upon that, that could be a really good ticket.
Yeah.
So, it went for 2 months, kind of back and forth. During the work week, she'd be like, don't talk to me. And then on the weekend, she'd be like, okay. And then during the week, she'd be like, nope, don't talk to me. And it was kind of back and forth until, in a roundabout way, through one of the guys that we do our title searches with, he reached out and was like, hey, I've got some friends up north that want to do an office down here, but they don't want to operate it. They just want some partners. And so that's, in a roundabout way, we linked up with them, because
that was Eagle Gate.
That was Eagle Gate. Part of the problem was it would take about 2 or 3 months, and there were some regulations coming in the industry that the timing had to be quick.
Yeah.
And we didn't want her clients to have to go somewhere else. She had 3 assistants that we didn't want to have to let go or, change their lives.
Yeah.
And so they got us up and running in about 6 days. I heard about them on a Friday.
That's why you did Eagle Gate, because had you tried to just create from nothing, then you would have taken you too long. I always wondered why you ended up doing that.
Yeah, and so the way it worked out was basically they're 2 partners of ours that they operate the 3 up north, and then we operate this one down here. And basically they told us, they said, we want something down here, but if you guys just need to get off the ground with us and then go do your own thing eventually, that's fine. But they immediately became such an essential part of our operation.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to be able to do title work all over the state of Utah.
Sure.
Rather than just Washington County.
Yeah.
And it's been the best partnership ever. So
yeah, and you spend so much time building the brand at this point. What would be the reason to not be a part of it?
Yeah. And even back then they said, if you want to stay with us for a year, 2 years, whatever, but immediately we knew that they were two partners that we could trust.
Yeah.
And so from there, that was August 10th. So what is today? August 2nd. So that was 8 years ago, August 10th.
That's amazing.
And yeah, we
Did
literally
you keep selling Vivint?
So I'd already gone. So I left my car out in Arkansas.
Okay.
When I came back, because my idea was to come back once a month, fly in and just be here for a week and then fly back out. Yeah. And so I came back that first time and I was going to be here a week. And instead I extended it to 3 weeks. And then once I kind of had an idea that this is what I wanted to do, I went out and flew out and drove my car back. And then it was about a month and a half, 2 months later about a month and a half later that we ended up starting it. And so then from there, that's when it started. Because basically what I told her was your life is not going to change. You will continue to do your closings. You have your assistants.
She didn't want that chaos.
She didn't want chaos. And I said, let me just run the business. I will market. I will get new business in the door. Worst case scenario, if this thing flops, then it flops. And you have many other title companies that you could go work for. Yeah. I'm 25 and I can go do something else if I need to. And so that's how I sold her.
Were you with your wife at the time or?
No, I met my wife just right after that.
Okay. So single. So you were really you had no risk at all.
Yeah. No risk.
You didn't have anything you had to worry about except yourself.
And so from there, I got my marketing license. I didn't study for it. I just went and took the test, got a 70. I needed 70. I said, common sense will get me 70%. And I got 71.
Attaboy.
And then from there, it was just a matter of going out and figuring out what people liked and how I could build value or how I could give value back to people that were giving us business.
Yeah.
And really just try to get business in the door.
So really just a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. And that's where the idea of what's happening in Southern Utah came. Because as I was going about, there are a lot of restrictions that we have. I could take people out to lunch. I could take people out to golf. And that's fun and that's cool, right? But I am my parents are both givers, through and through givers. And I like to think of myself as a giver. And because of that, when I was out trying to ask people for business, I felt weird asking for business without being able to reciprocate.
Sure.
And so I knew that I had, because starting over, when I first started, I said, I'm just going to do the Vivint model. And as people hit tiers of how many deals they send us, I'm going to give them a free.
Yeah.
Vivint did a great job of incentivizing us.
Yeah.
It was all the coolest stuff. And every time we hit a sales level, we'd get new stuff. Well, I found out really fast that wasn't going to happen in the title industry. So I said, okay, well, what I'm going to do. And that's when I started figuring out, man, this is tough. It's really hard other than just going and asking people for their business. Right.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted something that I could give back.
And at 25, you'd been on a mission, then you're selling Vivint. So it's you didn't have a real community. You weren't established in the community at the time.
Not really.
Outside of your friends. Those weren't your clients.
Right. And I had a few friends in the business, like the Fries.
Yeah.
But we weren't super tight. But I knew that I could start. I knew that I could just start talking to people, but I didn't want to go to those people that I knew and just say, hey, I want your business and we're friends, so give me your business.
Yeah.
It just felt weird.
Yeah.
And so that's when I really started to just be determined on being the best at, if anybody reached out for anything they needed in title, that I would get it to them faster than anybody else could. And I was determined to do that. And that's really where it started, where from there, it was if anybody needed a plumber or if anybody needed like anywhere in the business community. I joined BNI.
I was going to ask you
Givers Gain. I'm not part of BNI anymore, but I love the whole concept of Givers Gain.
Yeah.
I knew that the more that I gave to people, the more that would come in return.
Yeah.
And so I just really, that's how the connecting really started, was really out of a necessity of just trying to be of value to people in and out of my business. And I knew that if I did that I would create relationships that would be able to, if I was reliable with it, both with my title work, services, as well as just being a business community member, that would just accumulate and build a mountain.
It's interesting too, because before you were in title as like a consumer, I didn't give a shit where my title was.
Yeah, and most
you know what
people
I mean?
still, a lot of people still don't.
I don't think I ever even consciously was aware.
Right.
It would just be like they'd tell me a building to go to, and that's where I would go and sign my paperwork. So it wasn't until you got into it that then I would be like, oh, this is who my title company is.
Right.
You know?
And that was the other obstacle that I had.
How do you
no one
educate people on
understands. No one understands what title is.
No.
And that's why I say it's where you close, because people always are like, oh, I'm going to go close on my house. But a lot of people don't know. So I've spent a lot of time educating on that, but mostly just what I would just work through the realtors, builders, lenders, people that were driving.
Where'd you start?
Really started with the people that were already sending us business, and then the people that I knew in the industry, and that's how I started earning their business, figuring out what it was that I could do that would make them think of me when they needed to send their contract, because that's who was directing all. The average buyer,
someone
seller
else
doesn't
is just
know.
deciding for you. You don't even have any idea.
Exactly.
Do you run like the day-to-day of Eaglegate too? Is that under your purview?
So for the most part, yes.
Like the business, not the titles, but the business.
Yes. Yeah. So most of my focus, I would say, well, and I quickly learned, because the first year of Eaglegate, I was still running the gym. And then I had an Amazon business that I was trying to sell stuff on Amazon. I was all over the place, and I wasn't really focused on one. And that's when I really learned about going all in on one thing rather than being a jack of all trades. Or, I was into the whole.
Because you had the entrepreneurial spirit, so you're like, let me have all these
streams of income and have all these businesses. But then I quickly learned that if I'm running all three businesses, it's not going to go anywhere very fast. And as soon as, we ended up shutting down the gym, my partner ended up doing other things, and the Amazon business I shut down. And once I did that, my production with Eaglegate went through the roof. And so then from there, my focus has been multiple streams of income, but passive income through real estate and really development and things that are pertinent to my title business. And so most of my time still on a daily basis is focused on Eaglegate. Yeah.
So now any extra stream that you have is real estate based, because it ties directly to your business. Correct. And then it's not something that takes your bandwidth.
Correct. For the most part. Or I do some investing, private equity. I invested in Pico Rica, the barbecue restaurant downtown.
Bought some cartoon whales.
I have done some crypto, and that I learned another lesson last year, because all the investments that I have are investments that don't require more time. Yeah. Because what I've tried to do, and especially now that I'm a father, I've really tried to, and I'm all about freedom. And my wife, and even prior to being a dad, during the boom of COVID, I was working. I was going to say,
you work a lot, or at least you did.
And we do anyway. We work a lot. But my idea is to free myself eventually with time completely to, be able to freely do what I want. Yeah. But then also I really wanted to be there for her, and I wanted to be there for my kids. My dad was like my coach.
That's the benefit of being a teacher, right? Is that they always had that time to be involved in your life.
And so last year I got into crypto and I got into NFTs, and it was sucking so much time out of my day. And so I've come down off of that and really just anything else that I'm involved in are investments that don't take up a lot of my daily time. Yeah. And then also I've got to a point where I'm really efficient with my Eaglegate. So a lot of what I'm running with Eaglegate, a lot of what I'm doing in the office, I have the help of my assistant, Ryan. She's amazing. So that most of my day really is spent networking.
Yeah.
So it's spent either like at the Utah Tech Foundation networking there, or I'm on the chamber board and I'm with the Washington County Board of Realtors, meeting with realtors, meeting with clients. So I'm working on the business. But I'm networking, but then also
just you're working on the business more than in the business
to build relationships.
I would say for any young, spirited individual out there to really go follow you and find your story, because your story is not one of privilege. It's not like you were given anything, right? Yeah, you had to create it all. Sure. And you had parents who came from humble backgrounds in the sense that it's not like they were able to give you a business, right?
Yeah.
So you and I are similar in that way. And to see what you've accomplished, like being a fan on the sidelines, it truly is remarkable, because it's not like anyone said, Macrae, here's the stage and go be the unofficial mayor of St. George. You just took it, and you laugh because you think I'm being funny, but I'm not. I'll tell the story. I've told you this many times, but so Macrae does these What's Up in Utah things, and my wife Megan comes to me one day and she goes, yeah, they're doing an exotic car dealership. And I was like, no, that's not ever going to happen. She goes, yes, it is. And I was like, no, I know what you're talking about. It's not going to happen. She goes, yeah, Macrae said so in his video, and he knows more than you do, so it's definitely happening. And it was just like that was the moment where it's like, damn, this guy has like really penetrated the minds of Southern Utah, and you have, and it's just the reason I share that is because anyone can really do anything if you put the effort forward. And that was a thing where you made an investment in something you believed in that didn't have a direct return. It's not like from the first video you knew I'm gonna get X amount of closings out of it, or this is gonna work. And it's very much like that journey that you're on is I could equate it to like going to the gym, where it's great when you're doing it, but if you stop, then immediately your results are going to stop, right? Totally. And also you can't do it for 3 months and then be like, okay, I did it. Quit. You got to do it forever, And now look at all that it's done. Not only has it benefited Eagle 8 title, it's benefited you as an individual, and you're so connected now. That's how, like, when you talk about the good old boys, you got yourself into the club yourself. You know what I mean? Like, now you know all the things are happening. So you're able to make all these incredibly educated investments because you took the effort to be out there.
For sure.
And so I think if you're listening, know that anyone can do it, and you just got to put the effort out there. And like you said, it's been 8 years,
Yeah.
And people might watch your video now and be like, oh man, Macrae's so lucky. It's like, no.
It's been a grind.
This is 8 years in the making.
It's been a grind for sure. And really with the videos, because it has been, so when we started in August of 15. First, within 3 months, Tanner Gatchell actually, I don't know if you know Tanner.
Yeah, I know Tanner.
He was actually my competitor. He was at another title company, and we were just chatting one day, and we're friends, and I really try to have a collaborative spirit, and we can get into that too. I love the infinite game, but once we stop talking about like my story, but Tanner was like, dude, you got to get a newsletter, and you just drip on agents, and that's how you stay in front of them. And I thought, I hate newsletters. Like, I don't click on those things. I don't open
yours
emails.
Was the only one that I read.
And so he's like, just find something that, and I'm like, okay. So I start thinking, and I'm like, I don't want to just do like templates. I don't want to just be another person sending out a newsletter. But at the time, I was going around to all the brokerages trying to meet people, real estate brokerages, and I kept seeing dirt pop up. And this was 2015-16 when commercial really started to come back to St. George, because from 08 to 15, it was a slow, gradual rise of residential, but the commercial hadn't really picked up yet.
Yeah.
And so I started seeing dirt, and being a kid from here, I love new stuff. I love new restaurants and love new things to do. So I started getting excited about it. And then I went to the What's Up Down South Economic Summit, and I saw all the displays of all the developers, and I was like, I'm just going to put all this into a newsletter. And then if I run out of content one day, like, it is what it is, but I'm just going to do a newsletter where everything happening in St. George is going on. And that's how it started in 2016 and I've done that every first.
I remember, because I remember looking at it, because I would be like, oh, what new restaurants are coming? Yeah. Or like, it really was like when you'd send it out, I would be like, oh, and I'd call Megan and be like, guess you're never going to believe what we're getting,
Yeah. So it started out with the newsletter written form, and so I've done that and this is where consistency is. I've sent that newsletter out the first of every single month for every single month since 2016.
Wow.
I've never missed. But in 18, I really started wanting to put it into social, and I didn't really want to put words into social, and video was starting to be a thing. And then I found out about what a drone was. And I was like,
that's crazy to even say that out loud, but that's how quick things change.
I know.
I found out what a drone was.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to go get one and fly it around, see it. And then I met a video guy, still the same video guy 5 years later, and was like, Caden Kelsch with Vision Impact Productions. He's the man. He's the reason why they're so good. And that's another part of content creation is spending the money to make it good, because there's a lot of bad content out there.
Yeah.
And it takes money. In it. But anyway, so I was like, because the newsletter was just a comprehensive list of the whole county. And I was like, I'm just going to start going through every section and every little piece of town and just do a little video. And that was my first video. I was looking at it with my wife last night. April 2nd, 2018 was my first video. It was awful. But I knew that if I could just keep doing that, and that was the thing, is I didn't know how many closings it would be.
Of course not.
I didn't know how many people I would meet from it, but I just started doing it. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, everyone's offices shut down. We were still working, but realtors weren't around, lenders weren't around, everyone was at home. And I was like, I got to fill up my time somehow, because that's what I would usually do, is just go around and hang out, meet people. And so that's when, because I was doing it once a month, and then once COVID hit, I was like, I'm going to double down and I'm going to do weekly. And that's when I started doing weekly videos. And every once in a while, timing will throw off 1 week, but I've only missed 1 week this year. But I try for every single week. And so really the last 2 years has really been when, you know, like you said, you start something and you might not see results right away.
Yeah.
And I didn't for a long time. It was like a couple hundred views, and people, you know, people were noticing, people were seeing it. But it really the last 2 years, and really the last year, like my confidence level, everything has kind of gone through the roof.
Yeah.
And
that's the winner effect.
And just being more, and now it's just, it is weird because I do have people that do mention, you know, unofficial mayor or run for city council or whatever. And it is, there's some weird things about it, but I absolutely love it. And that's the biggest connector for me. It's the biggest network builder.
Well, yeah, you found a void and you filled it. You know what I mean? Because I legitimately, I'm not joking, I didn't know what was happening in the community I live in. And as soon as I saw exit 2, I was like, oh shit, yeah, like I can't wait to hear what's happening where I live, you know? And it's funny because, you know, it takes a visionary to have that mindset to go and create an opportunity for yourself. And it's funny because I was talking to Blake, one of the Blue Form Media team people, this before you came in, about, he goes, you know, what you never hear someone say is, I'm going to start a marathon. And he was like, but so many people say, like, oh, I think I might start a podcast. And it's like, well, are you going to start it or are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Because those are two different things.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like you can just make an episode, but are you actually going to do it? And you sharing that story is really, it's helpful to me because as I'm on my podcast journey, so this is episode 19.
Nice.
And if you think about it, that means I've been here for 19 weeks. That's a long time, you know? And episode 11 came out with Robert today, but it's like, I still have so much longer to go. Like I told myself, I'm going to do it for at least 4 years. And if at the end of 4 years, there is no, and I don't know what the return's going to be, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just views or if it's opportunity or what. I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. But if there's not a tangible return in 4 years, then I'll say that it wasn't successful. But I know I've got to try for 4 years.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's still only what? That'd only be, if you do 50 episodes a year, you're at 200 episodes.
200
that's
episodes.
that's not, you don't look at that and think like that's an unbelievable amount.
No.
You know, so it's like, I've got to at least go that far. And Alex Hormozy said it took him like 4 years before his even ranked. And he's done all these amazing things, you know? So it's like when you really want something in life or you're trying to pursue something, you've got to give yourself the opportunity to do it. And like you said, your video started in 2016, so you're 7 years deep.
Videos 18.
18.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
16
so
was a
5 years.
newsletter, but
still, that's what it evolved into, you know?
For sure.
And it just takes so much time. And the thing is, to be successful, you just have to keep showing up because eventually all the competition will stop. You know, like there's a lot of people with 19 podcasts.
Right.
There's a lot less with 50, a lot less with 100. Like even when I look at the category I'm in, I'll look and it's like people haven't recorded an episode in a year. you know? So it's like the difference is, can you keep showing up?
And that is the problem with society in general, is that it's instant gratification in a lot of areas of our life. It's instant. Everything is instant, right?
Yeah.
And so not many people are looking at the long term. And that's what one of my qualities, I guess I should say, is since we've started, this is a long-term business. We're going to go through ups and downs, but we're just going to remain constant. As long as we remain constant with our service and what we're doing and being smart with our money and everything, I'm looking at 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road with my business. And that's where I think a lot of people fail, because I talk to a lot of people that are like, man, how is your social game so strong? And then we start talking and they tell me about all these posts that they've created and that they've never posted them because they're afraid. And I said, go look at my first videos. They're awful. I was so bad, but I did it. And even though I was bad, I said, I'm just going to post it. Because if you find the right content and you're putting it out there, people are going to appreciate it. And as long as, there is some content, like I said, that you can tell people have not invested into it. Yeah. But even if you start with that and you evolve,
everyone's got to start somewhere.
You have to start. And but I think that, because some people, the other part of it is that people start and they go a month and then they don't get results. And, well, guess I'll try something else.
It's never going to work.
It's just never going to work.
No.
You have to think long term.
And you got to be willing to suck for a while.
Yes.
Until you get good. And to not get that. And then you might have a video that pops off and you think you figured it out. And then your next video gets no views. And it's like, that's just what it is. That's the nature of the beast. But if you keep showing up every single day, you will beat your competition, because most people do give up.
Yep.
That's all that it takes. Like if I went to the gym every day for a year for 365 days and just did like a mediocre workout, I'll be further ahead in 365 days than most of the population.
Yeah.
Because even if someone goes hard for 3 months, eventually they'll stop, And so it's like, if you're going to get on the treadmill next to me, I'm just going to go further than you do.
Yep.
And if you have that mentality, then you can be successful. So I think that's really cool to share that. And I think it's important to know, like, everyone started with nothing. Even Joe Rogan if you went back and looked at his very first podcast, it's not like it had a bunch of views when he first started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so everyone has to start somewhere and have that evolution. And if you've got that long-term mindset, like you were talking about, then you really can achieve anything. It's just, are you going to keep showing up?
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to do for a lot of people.
No, it's the hardest thing to do. And that's with anything. That's where habits and just how we live our life, people are living it so day by day. And if you live that way, it's hard.
Well, I was talking to a gal this morning about intention and being present. And it's like, so many people are on autopilot that they're not even consciously aware of their day.
Yeah.
It's like you get home to your spouse, like, how's your day? And it's like, it's good. And it's like it's almost like you don't even know, because we're just like in this rat race. And if you don't pull yourself present and know, like, okay, these are the things I'm trying to achieve, then you're basically just floating around doing nothing,
Which I've had instances of that, which has led to, hiring Brad Harker as a coach.
Yeah, that's funny. I was just going to ask you about that.
Doing some of the things that I've done, because, like I said, during COVID, it got insane around here.
Yeah.
And when it was working around the clock, my mom was working around the clock like crazy, and she always has my whole life. She's just a workhorse. She's the hardest working person in this industry.
Yeah.
And, but with that, you're always thinking about work, and a lot of times we're just on autopilot, and really, and so I've really tried to be intentional mostly this year has kind of been a thing where I've really tried to be intentional on when I'm at work and when I'm at home. And I'm still not perfect. My wife will probably laugh because there's still a lot of times where I check that phone, but I've gotten so much better. And it's putting intentional things into place to make it so that you are intentional where you're at.
Yeah, and creating space for the things you're doing.
And creating space because even there's just with my phone, like 2 years ago, this thing, because now I don't have any notifications at all for the most part that actually buzz, except for my family, my wife, Shan, my mom and dad, my brother. And other than that thing doesn't vibrate. And before, it would vibrate and
nonstop.
It was emails all day long, and I'd be in conversations with people, and then I'd have it right there in my pocket, and the whole time I'm just thinking about what am I going to walk out of this meeting to?
Do you want to know why that is?
Why?
So the only thing that we can multitask as humans, like truly and really, is that our prehistoric brains gave us the ability when we hear danger to be aware. And so like the reason that like a vibration kind of sets us off is because prehistorically, if we were walking through the jungle and we heard bushes crack, you're like, oh shit, a tiger's coming, you know? And so that's what creates that anxiety. And so when you have that vibration, it will set off a sense of like, I have to look at it. Or maybe you stop engaging well in the conversation because then you're just thinking, or even it just comes up on your screen and it's like your mom. And so you're thinking, oh no, did a title closing get missed? Or what was it? You know, there's certain names that can show up that you're like, or an email or a notification and you're like, oh no. And then you instantly lose that connection with the person that you just had. And it's funny because I talk about, it's so valuable in podcasts because it's not very often you sit across a table with someone and talk for an hour, you know? And like in the podcast, I'm not going to pull up my phone and like see what's going on. But if you and I were just hanging out, I probably would.
Right.
Like if we pulled the headphones off and moved the microphone, then I probably would in the middle of the conversation just address it. And it's like, man, we've got to get ourselves back as humans to say like, be with the person that you're with.
Absolutely.
You know? Those other people, they can wait. They're not going anywhere, you know?
And that's what I've really had to train myself to understand.
Yeah, it's a journey. What drove you to want to hire Brad? Like what was your intention behind that? What have you taken from it?
It was really just, I felt like my life was a little bit out of control as far as, I mean, being present is one of them.
Yeah.
And really just I felt like I was just becoming a robot.
Sure.
And that every day I would wake up and it was just like I was just this robot that was so focused on business, and I guess just focused on
He's gonna say you're so focused on just moving forward. Every day it's like I'm building and building and building and building.
And to
and
the
then
point
if you
where
only build, when
like,
are you gonna enjoy it?
Yeah, exactly. And I do enjoy, like, we take our time to vacation and I don't have to work weekends for the most part, but I still felt like I just wasn't waking up excited.
Sure.
And I wasn't.
It's hard to do something for a long time.
I just felt like I was just in a rut that I needed somebody that I could just bounce off of, and it's been awesome. Like what I've learned about myself the last couple months has been incredible.
Yeah, how long have you been doing it? Because I know when we went to the Lakers game,
since
you were
February.
doing it then. Okay,
yes, I think February, March.
Well, I think that you'll find that with most successful people, no matter what vertical they're in, they've got someone in their life like a Brad or somebody like that, right?
I mean, every professional athlete, every top CEO executive, they all have it.
Or
somebody.
Or they're a part of groups or part of a chair, or they're a part of a board. They're taking an opportunity to work on themselves and to really take advice from other people and have an outlet to say, because you don't want to go home and just dump on your wife all the time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because that puts that relationship in a strain, and you can't dump on your mom. And so it's like, where can you go to have a really healthy outlet where you have an unbiased third party who can help you have some introspection to your life?
Absolutely. Because that part of it is I wanted to make sure that my home life was good, right? And so I couldn't go home to her and, talk to her about how I can be like, I needed someone else that I could just say, hey, this is how I'm feeling throughout my day. And it's been awesome.
That's great. Well, I think it's so important to do that and to have that space, because that, like, no success in your business would be worth sacrificing your family. Right. There's no amount of anything that you could have that if it sacrificed your family, you'd look back and be like, well, that was worth it. It's never worth it. So you've got to have that introspection to be able to do that. So that covers the first question, which is really the one that builds up the story. But now my next question for you, and if you listen to the podcast, you know it's coming, but what's your biggest win in your life?
Biggest win is building my family. Becoming a dad is like, because we struggled to get there. Yeah. Dad is definitely one of the biggest wins. Just not only finding Shan but also having Coco, just because really, like I said, a lot of I just have some health stuff that has just prevented me from, which is part of what led me to Brad as well. Just certain things with my body that I don't completely understand. I still don't. But but that has definitely been, I love being a dad. I love our family. And along with that, building the family business. Because
I was going to say, because building your family is more than just like your immediate nucleus of your wife and your daughter, but also like your whole family is involved.
Exactly. So just the whole encompassing of, because 2015 is when I found, when we started the business and when I found Shan.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for
all of that's grown together.
2015, because I found those two amidst, I was going through, I look back now and I was going through a pretty heavy, like crazy year. And then when we founded the business, and then when I met Shan, those two just came together, and that's really when my life started that I know of now. And
isn't it
she's been a rock. She's been a rock. And then this business for our family has just completely changed our family's life forever.
Isn't it amazing how important a partner is? Because like looking back on my life too with Megan, because we got together so young, it's like, had I gotten, let's just say that everything happened except for the Megan part. If I would have been a district manager in Phoenix, making the money I was making at the age I was making, my evenings would have looked a lot different than they did with Megan, right? Because we were creating a family unit. So we were just at home making dinners. Like, I didn't even ever do anything. I went to Old Town twice in all the time that I lived there. I can assure you that had I been there by myself, I would have been making a lot of poor decisions, and I wouldn't have had that structure, and I wouldn't have been, reading at night and going to bed an appropriate hour and sleeping the right amount and getting up early and doing all the things that allowed me to be successful. Exactly. Had I not had that partner by my side where it's like, okay, we're actively building something together, And so it's really interesting. I know for me, without her there for that whole journey, I would have never, even though my skill set wouldn't have changed.
Right.
My ability to continue to move forward in a positive way, which wouldn't have happened.
Yep. No, I completely 1000% agree with that, because the lifestyle I was also living prior to Shan, if I would have kept doing that, I don't think I wouldn't have seen the success that I've seen either. Because part of that success has been like, you probably wouldn't have been making as much even then, because you wouldn't have been able to perform as well. Oh, of
course not. No, absolutely.
Thinking about the future.
It took all those habits to succeed at the level that I was.
Exactly. And so, because, before Shan, I mean, since Shan, the structure and everything, and just like you said, building toward something, it has been a huge impact. And actually what's funny is that I've become so structured. And I'm really not a structured person. I'm a person that's like, I'm not a creature of habit, really. I like to see new places. I like to stay at, I don't mind going back to the same places. I don't mind going back to the same restaurants. But I like seeing new. Yeah. And my morning routine, I've really ingrained in a morning routine. And one thing that I've actually been working through this year, or not just in the last couple of weeks, and part of why I felt like I wasn't totally happy, or I wasn't totally, or I felt like I was a robot, is I'd actually become a little too structured in the sense that I wasn't really taking care of my body, because I needed to wake up at 5. No matter what, I had to wake up at 5, and I had to do my morning routine, and I had to do my work routine. And so what I've been talking through with Brad was like unroutining myself just a little bit.
Yeah.
Sleeping in a few days, and just kind of getting out of my normal routine. And it's
like if something happens where you have to go to bed late, give yourself the grace to get the sleep that you need.
Yes. You're going to be fine that day if you don't wake up at 5 and go to the gym or go ride your bike or whatever. And the days that I've slept in, or the amount of sleep, I actually got this whoop about the same time. It's been like a month or two, where I've been able to track my sleep, my recovery,
it's very interesting.
Everything. It's amazing. And
why can't they just put a goddamn time on it though?
I know, but I don't. I would like the time. I'm glad that it's not connected to my
I know,
phone.
but don't you wish? Because like I would have one if it just had the time on it. I literally need nothing else. Just tell me what time it is, because I'm not going to wear that and a watch.
Well, and I don't wear watches, so I'm not a watch guy. And maybe one day they'll make this skinnier, so it's like just a little teeny bracelet.
It can be the same size. Just put the time on it.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, so I've just been really conscious of.
It's so cool to see your sleep on that.
It's amazing, and just being able to, and it's just really helped in unroutining myself just a little bit. And I'm still very much structured.
Yeah.
And have a routine. But I just feel like I've been able to be a better dad, a better husband, and maintain being a good, being whatever I am, being a good worker, being a good,
still being able to be successful,
still being able to be
grace.
successful, while unroutining myself just a little bit.
That's good. I think that's a good takeaway for the audience, because it's easy to get stuck in like, I've got to do all these things because this is what success is supposed to look like.
Exactly.
So then if you don't do that thing, you feel unsuccessful, but really you can't arrive at success because it's a perpetual journey. Yes. So it's like one day is not going to change anything because you're constantly striving for it anyways, you know, because like you were doing it and you didn't feel it. Right. And so it's like, and you also talked about like not being happy. And I think it's good to have those conversations because outsiders can always look at someone else and see happiness and wish that they had it or feel like lesser than because they have the absence of it. But happiness and success are two things that are fleeting.
Totally.
Like they come and go. Yeah. It's not like once you're happy, you're always happy.
No.
There's things that happen in your life that make it go up and down. And that's really what life's about is learning how to navigate that. So on the opposite coin of that, then what would you say is your biggest loss?
It's really tough. Because I've listened to it. I knew the question was coming, and that's a really hard question. I think my biggest loss has actually been just because I haven't always. I wish that I would have had more it's funny because you would think that I would have a lot of self-confidence, because of some of the things that I've created and done. But in reality, I feel like I've held myself back a lot of what I'm able to accomplish because of some lack of confidence. And I think that the loss, and it's not really even just a loss, maybe lost opportunities over the last.
Yeah, and you get the freedom to define it, so keep going on your message.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as like the maybe opportunities or things that I've lost throughout the last, decade or even just in my life, right? Maybe some of the opportunities that I've lost because of my lack of self-confidence, which has I've built it up. And that's one thing that I'm also working on as well.
I was going to say, do you feel that way now?
I feel more and more all the time, but it's definitely been a work in progress for sure.
What's so interesting is that don't you believe if you asked any version of yourself previously, a decade ago, 15 years ago, and you could show them a video of you today and all of your things, this is the life you've built. There's no way that any one of those previous Macraes would have looked at that and been anything other than like jubilation.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So what do you think drives that lack of confidence?
I don't know. I mean, this is something that I have these conversations, regularly with myself and Brad and whatnot. And I don't know. I think it's just that I think I put limits on myself. And I guess the limits that I put on myself are what maybe drive that lack of confidence because I think that like right now, for example, and this is where we talk about hitting our upper limit and pushing through that upper limit is when people really find greatness is when they push through there. We set these limits for ourselves and it's pushing through that ceiling. And with my golf game right now, I told myself this year.
That's so funny. I was going to use a golf analogy.
I said every single year I start golfing in April, May when it starts getting lighter out in the morning and I can get out. And then by the fall, the more I play, usually the worse I get. And then I play in those last couple scrambles in the fall, and then it gets too cold and I'm not very good. So then I hang it up for the winter and then the next year. So I don't really ever get better. And so this year I'm determined to get better at golf. And right now the good thing is I've become consistent, but I'm consistently below average still. Yeah. On 9 holes, it's pretty much every single round I'm 15 over. So about 50, 51 every single time. Yeah. And for the last like 2 months. Before that, I had a 62 one time with Blair and Alex, Hafen and Levi.
And to be clear for the listeners, we're talking about 9 holes.
9 holes. It was awful. But I feel like the last 2 months, I've been able to get consistently to that, right? Yeah. But it's funny because on my golf score or on my scorecards, sometimes I start out really good, and I don't ever look at the scores. Like I don't ever count up the scores until the end. But it's almost like I hit this upper limit, and then I just go to crap. And I end up with a 51. And it's the most.
Even if you start with 3 pars, you're going to still get a 51.
Yes. And so I'm like trying to break through this right now, right? Yeah. And I think that is ultimately what I think drives that. Growing up, it was like, you know, whether I had a couple relationships in high school that were awful, you know, with girls, and that's where a lot of the self-confidence comes when you're growing up, right? Yeah. Or in sports, I've always been an athlete, but I've never been that top athlete, right? And so I feel like, and that's where I feel like some of the lack of confidence is driven from, and that's what I'm trying to push through every day, is just getting better and better at being confident in what I'm doing. Yeah. And the videos really, and I've seen it in the videos, because the first couple of years of the videos, I was not confident on camera at all. And I've gotten way better at it. I've gotten better at talking on video. And anyway, it's a work in progress.
Well, I think it's great you shared that, because I doubt many people who engage with you through any social media platform would ever have that thought of like, oh yeah, Macrae's lacking confidence, you know, or anyone who's met you in the community, that's never a thought they would have. And so I think it's important when you're vulnerable to be able to share that, you know. I think everyone struggles with it in different ways. Like, I would never say that lack of confidence was a problem for me, but I certainly had limiting beliefs. Like, I definitely portrayed confidence, but then in my own, like, just me and just no one else, it's like, oh, I suck, you know, like, why can't I do this? Or, you know, and so I think we all have that, but not many people are willing to share it. So I think that's really, and that's a great answer to the question. You took it in a way that I think no one has. And the thing I was going to share with golf is what's interesting as I've worked on my golf game is I can only get as good as I can get, right? Like, okay, broke 100. That was a level. Then it's like, okay, now I'm trying to get to 90s. That's a level. And what's so hard is to get better at golf, you actually have to get worse. Yeah. Because my golf game is only going to get me as good as I am. And now it's like, okay, if I'm shooting a 90 and I want to shoot an 85, well, that means I have to change something. Right? I've got to change my swing, or I've got to change, instead of just playing it safe, now I've got to go for the green from a further distance so I can get a green in regulation, so I can 2-putt for par, have a chance at a birdie. And so then when you start trying to attack the green, well, now I'm hitting it out of bounds because I'm pulling it, or I end up in the sand. And so then your score gets worse, and you almost want to revert back to like, I should just go back to how I used to play. But the problem is, how you used to play will only get you the results you used to get. Exactly. And so in life, you've got to be willing to be worse at something so you can eventually be better. And that's kind of you with the videos. You had to be bad at it at first in order to be good. So when you started, you're like, oh, I don't have confidence, this isn't working well, and you just stopped, you never would have got to the place of being good. So I'd say embrace, you know, for the listeners, embrace being bad at something. Yeah. It's only a matter of time before you become good.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So now the most important question, I usually ask about mentor. You already talked about your dad and your mom, which I think is awesome. Yeah. So the most important question is, how do you define success?
This is also a tough question. Yeah. Because I could ramble about it. But essentially, I see success as if every day I am thinking of others and trying to make an impact on others, and fulfilling what I feel like I need to do, not only for my wife at home and with Coco and our family, but with friends, business colleagues, everything. If I am doing everything I feel like I can to fulfill my role in whatever responsibility, or the responsibility of whatever role it is, that's where I see success.
I like that, saying your responsibility, because what was interesting is you were sharing that. I was thinking, well, if you had no money, would you still feel the same way? Let's say you had no money, but you're doing all those other things. But you're saying your responsibility, and as a provider, part of that responsibility is having the means to take care of your family, right?
Because if I didn't have that, no, I would not. I would not feel that way.
Right, but the way that you phrased it, showing up and fulfilling the responsibility that you have to the people that you really care about, I think that's a fun answer. So in that vein, do you consider yourself successful?
Yeah, I do.
That's great. I don't think a lot of people do, you know? Like, I don't think a lot of people, it's amazing when I go to college classrooms and I ask kids to raise their hand if they feel like they're successful, and most of them don't. But it's like, I always then say to them, all of you at some point wanted to go to college because you're here. So that means that's that person who aspired to be in college. You're living a dream that you had. Right. You dreamed to be here, and now you are. Take a moment to breathe it in and feel successful. Just because you have a new dream now, which is whatever the next step is, don't forget to appreciate the dream that you're in.
Yeah. And trust me, where going back to the lack of, self-confidence or limiting beliefs, there are times where I do feel, I question myself. Am I being successful?
And you feel unsuccessful.
But when I go to the underlying, am I doing everything that I can to fulfill my responsibility with all those that
count on
me or that are around me? If I can answer that, no matter what the money is that's coming in, because at this point,
your threshold is taken care of.
Yeah. Then I feel like I'm a success.
I love that. I think it's awesome that you can say that you feel that way too. So anything that kind of wraps up everything that I have for you, anything that you want to leave the listeners with?
Just be kind.
I love that.
Be kind.
Well, if people want to connect with you on Instagram, it's at Macrae Heppler. That's MacraeHeppler. And then you've also got Eagle Gate Title. What's the best? Where's all your videos at on YouTube? What's that
so
under?
YouTube is just Macrae. Everything YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram is all Macrae.
Okay.
If you want to subscribe to my email list, which is where the videos get released and the newsletter gets released prior to going on social, that is macraeheppler.com. So it's just everything Macrae.
And I'll put all those in the show notes too.
Cool.
So that way, if you're listening to this, then you can just go down in the show notes wherever you are, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. You can go down the show notes and you can connect on any of that stuff.
Sweet.
Okay. Well, hey,
Good
thanks.
stuff.
Thanks for taking the time out of being the mayor of St. George to come and share your wisdom with us.
Mayor Randall is the mayor. I love being friends with her though.
Every mayor needs an unofficial mayor.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and you fill that role perfectly. All right, Mac. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, man.